Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to interCHANGE. Oh, we have a lot of things to talk about today. We have a new governor, a new senator, a new brewer manager. Denise has a new job. Oh, and that high-speed train that Doyle and Obama's people said couldn't be stopped. Well, it looks like it has been. Joining us tonight, our newspaper columnist, Joel McNally. Aide to Republican State Senator Mary Lazarus, and oftentimes a host over at WISN Radio, Kevin Fischer. Denise Callaway, the communications director for the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, soon to be back with Milwaukee Public Schools. And Gerard Randall, consultant and local job creation expert. Well, big Republican wins here in Wisconsin, all across the country. One conclusion that I think you can surely draw is that this was a complete rejection, repudiation of every program and policy that Barack Obama has and that he's been pushing and promoting. And any connection to him was absolutely toxic. Barrett lost, Feingold lost, more than 50 Democratic House members lost their jobs. I don't think you can draw any other conclusion at all.
Well,
really? Well, then I guess we just might as well pack it up and go home.
You're right. You're right.
No,
and isn't it great to be a Republican?
I feel great today.
Seriously, I mean, you can't just,
right.
If it was just Wisconsin, it was the whole country, though.
What other conclusion can you draw? The Democrats had a bad night? I mean,
No, with regards to health care, certainly on the national stage, that was repudiated across a number of states. What I did take a notice of, though, was how much more blue states to the west have become. Oregon, Washington, California, who knows, Nevada and Colorado may flip into that corner. And looking down the line at the elections 2 years from now, what issues will be raised that will lead those states, which some of them had been Republican, certainly within the last 12 years, will there be an opportunity to recapture them? But clearly, the president had a bad night with regards to his policies, and here in this state, there were federal policies that were rejected as well, federal spending being the top among them. So I'm excited that we now have a legislature in place and certainly a federal Congress that will hear the voters that want to see less spending, lower taxes, more of a focus on domestic policies that are more spendthrift than what they had been. And this new legislature at the state level, this governor, Scott Walker, and his team, they're going to have to execute on that.
Do you disagree? Even Obama came out and said, you know, he pretty much apologized as much as he can.
Well, he said he took quite a shellacking.
Yeah. I have to disagree with your whole premise. Yes, this election proved that the people who hate Barack Obama hate Barack Obama. And they really turned out. And I really underestimated all this, build up in the media about the Tea Party and about the people who hate Barack Obama. I thought was really overstated. And I expected the election to show that. Instead, the election showed exactly that. It showed an enormous turnout in Waukesha, Ozaukee, Washington counties, the most Republican counties. That's really where the election was won, by an enormous turnout of basically backlash voters against Barack Obama. Tom Barrett did great in Milwaukee County. People were worried, was Scott Walker going to really, cut into, what a mayor of Milwaukee could take out of Milwaukee County. Actually, Tom Barrett did better than some statewide candidates do in Milwaukee. And Scott Walker, in the county where he was best known, did his worst. I have to say, obviously I'm struggling to find something positive to take out of this election. So the most positive thing I've taken out of it is I think this helps to assure that Barack Obama will be elected in 2 years, reelected in 2 years, because I think his supporters, you knew there was going to be a drop-off from the election where he was on the ballot to the midterm elections where the Republicans were trying to get their revenge. And there was. I mean, the younger voters didn't turn out as much as they did. African Americans didn't turn out as much as they did, obviously, when he was on the ballot. But you got to know that the 2012 election, which the campaigning for is starting right now, the Democrats are going to be in good shape. They are going to whip their voters into shape and make sure every one of those voters gets out because you've learned that the haters really can turn themselves out.
I don't think it's not people.
Is not going to be gracious.
It's not people who hated Barack Obama. It's people that couldn't stand his arrogant, pompous attitude and the attitude that he and Reid and Pelosi had to shove stuff down the throat of Americans.
I don't think it was that. I'm going to quote somebody who I'm sure you all never thought I would quote ever, and that's John Boehner. And John Boehner said it's about jobs and it's about the economy. And that's what this election was about. People were very concerned about what's happening in the economy. The economy is not turning around quickly enough, even though there were some great numbers today as it related to job creation, over 150,000 private sector jobs created last month. People are still very concerned about what's happening.
So they didn't hate Obama. They're just very disappointed.
I think they're disappointed in everybody. I think they are. I do think that's the case. And
the fact is, voting no doesn't create jobs, and the Republicans don't have a job program.
I think
people were upset about jobs, but the Republicans have not come forward with a jobs program yet.
The challenge for the easy part now is getting elected. The tough part now is going to be to govern. And I think that if we take a look what's happened over the past couple of decades, we've seen that pendulum swing, those surge votes that have happened, becoming shorter and shorter in their intervals. I think that what's going to happen is that if Republicans aren't able to deliver on those promise of jobs, I mean, that's what people are really talking about, jobs, not health care. They're talking about jobs. If Republicans are not able to deliver on the promise of jobs, in 2 years, I think we're going to see another surge. I think
there is no job program.
Because I don't think they're going to be able to reach the kind of compromises they need to.
Obama and the Democrats in Congress weren't listening. I mean, we had plans. They had them on paper. They have plans today.
Besides cutting taxes for millionaires and billionaires, what are your plans?
We're going to do that. We're going to cut taxes for a lot of people. We're going to cut spending because we just can't keep building the debt and deficits. And Scott Walker stopped into our Senate Republican caucus yesterday in Madison, and I think he nailed it. He said that Democrats who enjoyed this same tsunami 2 years ago, they squandered their opportunity. Instead of working on the priorities that they said they would, we're still at war in Iraq. We're still at war in Afghanistan. Unemployment is still very, very high. The economy is still struggling.
I'm still waiting for the jobs program. What is it?
Well, we're in power now.
So you got jobs, but what about other people getting jobs?
Well, I think if you will listen, and
I keep asking.
And you will watch, you will see that one of the things you do, the government does not create jobs. The private sector creates jobs. And the private sector, in order to create jobs, government has to get out of the way. They can't overtax. Right. They can't over-regulate. They have to make it easier for business to do business. And that's one of the first items on Scott Walker's agenda. Right. The day he gets sworn in, he's going to call the legislature back into special session. He's going to declare a state of emergency in the state of Wisconsin. He's going to call for legislation that's specifically targeted to aid small businesses, which are the engine of the economy. So you're going to see swift action not a year from now, not 2 years from now, but on day one of the new Scott Walker administration.
Okay, so in Washington for the next 2 years, it's split still. So all they're going to do is fight. Right. But in Madison, where Republicans now control everything,
you know what?
What's going to happen in Madison?
That's the scariest part of all, because even very seldom has the governor and both houses of the legislature been in the hands of the same party. One of the last times was when Tommy Thompson had two houses of the Republican legislature, but he actually was a check on some of the Republican wild ideas. He opposed capital punishment. You had those usual Republicans coming up and wanted to return to 157 years ago. We got rid of murdering people in this state, and there are people who want to restore capital punishment. They're the anti-abortion crowd that wants to throw every obstacle in the way of a woman's right to choose.
Walker and this legislature are going to get along just fine.
They absolutely are, and that is frightening because there's no check.
Than what we had under Jim Boyle.
Check.
Under Jim Doyle, we had no check either. And spending went crazy. He promised that he was going to cut 10,000 government jobs. That did not happen. In fact, what ultimately happened is that the benefits package for those employees that stayed on, that he was presumably going to cut, that he had promised to cut, that led to this crisis that we're in right now, raiding all different sorts of funds that were supposed to have some kind of integrity, some kind of protection to them so that they stayed focused on transportation or health. For doctors, taxes. He said he wouldn't raise all those things that happened under his watch happened with a Democratic Assembly and a Democratic Senate, and that, to me, is more scary than
what's going to happen when you have a governor who has promised, I will not raise taxes at all.
He won't. He never has.
If I can answer, I think it puts you in a tough spot because I think it's really difficult to cut your way out of a $2.7 billion structural deficit. It is very difficult to do it on cuts alone. So I think that puts him in.
That means gutting education. It means gutting lots of things.
Guys, let me get a complete sentence out. I think that puts him in a tough spot. I think that really does. Now, that being said, I will say two things. First of all, it's not always as easy as one might think to, even when you control the governor's office and both houses of the legislature, to get everything done. Because just as Democrats are not monolithic, neither are Republicans. So I think that's one thing we all have to realize. It's not going to be smooth sailing and everything's going to get done. There's going to be some disagreement here, and I think it'll be interesting to see what Republicans decide they want to tackle first, where they feel they can have.
Could a Republican talk about what a Republican is going to do?
So let me just finish this one other thing.
It's not a filibuster.
I will say, well, sometimes, Kevin, with you it seems like it, so I guess I'm just following your good lead.
Let us know when this bicentennial minute is over.
The other thing that I was going to say is, when it comes to talking about job creation, I, for one, hope that Governor-elect Scott Walker is absolutely successful in creating 250,000 jobs.
Out of thin air.
Unlike what Republicans have sometimes done in terms of saying they want to see Democrats fail, I don't want to see Scott Walker fail because having him fail is bad for this state. So I hope that he can do it. I wish him every bit of best luck.
Republicans are extremely unified. The margins of victory here are such that even if one or two Republicans stray in the Senate or the Assembly and go off the reservation, stuff is going to get done. So watch very early on. The budget's going to take 6 months to figure out, and it won't be easy, but it will be done. It will be done in the light of day, not at 3 in the morning behind closed doors. It will be a balanced budget. Cuts will be made in spending, but between now and then, watch for some red meat to be tossed to those wave of voters that wanted change. And watch,
that's scary.
Photo ID is finally coming to Wisconsin.
Make it harder for Democrats to vote. That's a great first priority.
Everybody wants it. 75 to 80% of the voters want it.
Next topic. Interesting how Governor Doyle said the high-speed train couldn't be stopped, wouldn't be stopped, and then a day after Scott Walker wins, orders all work on the train to stop. So it looks like Doyle helps Walker keep one of his biggest campaign promises, which was no high-speed train whatsoever. I don't know. I don't think this is Doyle's decision. I think the Obama people went, hey, if the state doesn't want it, we'll give it to somebody else.
Actually, it's absurd that would be the first act of this governor, the new governor, Scott Walker, to kill 5,000 jobs, which is what would be involved in construction over the next 2 years. It is absurd. It has never made any sense for Scott Walker to oppose a gift of $810 million to the state of Wisconsin that will create jobs and development when he's talking about making up 250,000 jobs. It's never made any sense to me. The fact that this is a national system, it would be like Wisconsin opting out of the interstate highway system. This is a national high-speed rail system, some of the trains of which are going to be built on the north side of Milwaukee, or were going to be built on the north side of Milwaukee by Talgo, the Spanish company, a place which is desperately in need of jobs. And for that to be the first official act of this governor it just shows how fraudulent, his claim of jobs was. Why in the world do you want to take jobs away from your own people? And a gift of $810 million. And he kept using the excuse that, well, we're going to have to pay some operating costs. Actually, the federal government pays the most of the operating costs between Chicago and Milwaukee. There's no reason why they won't do the same thing between Milwaukee and
that's not true.
And Madison. It absolutely is true.
It's not true.
And it is just absurd to me to start out by jerking away another 5,000 jobs people who desperately need them.
Well, and the thing is, if we don't want the money, already the governor-elect of New York has said he's happy to take the money.
Good, let him have it.
He sees it as the new area. He sees it as a forward-thinking, forward-moving way to create yet another interstate transportation system that really allows us to be able to move goods, people, and in this case, goods or ideas. Those are the goods of this century. Throughout the country so people can benefit from it.
But I think he's doing just what Governor Christie did.
Exactly.
He's just saying, no, we don't have the money, stop.
Exactly. The governor of New Jersey just said that we're not going to spend money that we don't have. Whether it's state money or federal money, it's all coming out of the same taxpayers' pockets.
Bingo.
And this is a boondoggle.
To create jobs.
No, it's not creating jobs that are
Permanent,
sustainable.
jobs.
And
It
it's
would create
adding to
55
a
jobs.
tax burden at the federal level. With regards to spending that we simply cannot afford. I've got no problem with the train. I like trains. I take trains all the time. But if I had to set my priorities and place this train program on my list of priorities, it'd be way down on the bottom if it were on there at all, given the limited amount of resources that we've got at the federal level and how we would choose to spend those resources. If we go out, it does not create sustainable jobs, and whatever jobs it creates
are going over the next 2 years when we need them the most.
Well, you know what? I still say that those folk who have to pay for that program were highly upset with the fact that it wasn't a high priority when it was proposed by the president, funded by Congress, and now we're looking at some people who are taking another look at it and saying it just doesn't make sense. And I think they're right. And I hope they're successful in stopping it.
20 states have filed a lawsuit or not filed a lawsuit, but are saying that they don't want this stuff.
Right.
And other governors are coming through, newly elected governors like Scott Walker and a few others who are saying that we don't have the money. This isn't popular. Most of the people that are calling their offices or that are being polled are saying we don't support this. The Legislative Fiscal Bureau, and it's nonpartisan, and they know more about this than any of us sitting up here, have put out memos saying it'll only create 55 long-time sustainable jobs.
But 5,000 over the next 2 years.
I'm telling you, Scott Walker is unwavering. He sets his mind to something, he's going to do it. He says he's not going to let this train get off the tracks. Those trains are going to be sitting in a warehouse, rusting.
Oh, that's great.
And what's going to happen is these people who are working on these contractors on this project see the handwriting on the wall, and I think they're willing to say, fine. We'll stop this project because we want to work with the new governor, we want to work with the new administration, and we want future projects. So I think there's a good chance that this will be stopped. And the good news is that money, that Scott Walker will work with Congress to say, let's use that money where it really should go, not for a train that nobody will ride, but on our crumbling bridges and our crumbling roads.
And don't you think the Obama people said, hey, if Wisconsin doesn't want it, let's give it to somebody.
The money is not going to be reallocated. The money is not going to be reallocated.
They'll give it to somebody else.
What's going to happen is the money is going to go to someplace
Ryan
else.
is
what will happen is those
congressional
taxpayer money dollars that we've been putting into this, taxpayer dollars in Wisconsin that were put into this are now not going to go to the benefit of Wisconsin citizens and workers. They're going to go to the benefit of New York or someplace else that would like that.
Paul Ryan is the chair of the budget writing committee.
Project.
No, I'm saying that there has to be a higher priority item that money could be spent on if we're going to spend money. And this certainly wasn't a high priority.
A high priority is jobs.
The stimulus is never created.
You've got Paul Ryan that will be the chair of the budget writing committee. You've got Tom Petri, who has a lot of seniority, was one of the leading members on the transportation committee, who in the last occasion helped to redirect those funds that came to Wisconsin for transportation. You've got Jim Sensenbrenner, who has a lot of seniority and respect in the Congress. No doubt he'll be a chair as well. I think the combination of them with new Senator Ron Johnson, that they are going to make sure that money gets spent on better priorities than what it's being directed towards.
Let's talk about the new brewer manager for just a few minutes. Is this the guy that the team needs, or is this the guy that they got because they couldn't afford Valentine? And does this guy sell any more tickets at all?
The guy the Brewers need is Cliff Lee.
Joel.
The truth of the matter is, this could be a great guy. It's hard to know because when a new manager's named, all you read is glowing reports about the guy.
Course.
That's happened every single time.
Joel, how about this?
The guy
he gave a great interview.
Yeah.
Where have we heard that before?
The guy one of the guys I respect, actually.
Wasn't Maka supposed to be fantastic?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
One of the guys I really respect with knowledge about baseball, Brian Anderson, does play-by-play on TV for the Brewers. He says this guy is one of the most impressive people he's ever met in his life.
Gee, I'm sold.
But I mean, that's, to me, you wouldn't have said that probably about Ken Maka or about Ned Yost or about any manager I can think of, in the history of the Brewers. People around this guy and who know the guy like him. Now, the manager does not sell tickets.
Nope.
The manager does not decide whether the team wins or not, really. It's the team. He's there to take the heat, but it's the team and whether the team can come together with this manager.
He has to make the right moves, but he certainly does not sell tickets.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm cautiously optimistic just because.
Here we go.
But he can't just manage what they have now.
Look,
That's no different than next year would be no different than last year.
More pitching. They're going to go after better pitching.
Really are.
All the good pitchers are going to go where the money is. And I'll tell you, with the Yankees not going to the World Series and not winning it, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go get all the good pitchers.
But having all the good pitchers doesn't necessarily.
Well, it sure helps
win.
if you watch the San
hurt.
Francisco Giants and the Texas Rangers and the Philadelphia Phillies.
You did get the Yankees
You need
into
the Roy
the series.
Hallidays and the Cliff Lees and the Lincecums to go anywhere. We don't have any of that. And after praising the Bucks last week, I'm back to being sour on my local teams. Renicky, who has never managed a game in his life. Well, then hire me. Hire Denise. Hire Joel. Well, no, don't hire Joel.
Actually, he managed 4 games.
If he were manager in his late
And he won
30s,
them all.
early 40s, and we were talking about bringing him in for his first managerial job, I would be a lot more comfortable about it. I think, though, you hit on something when you said that they lowballed the amount of money that they wanted to put into the position so that they could go out, as Denise pointed out, and bring in some pitching, which everybody is going to be after, and we're going to be in a competitive field. Are we prepared to spend the money on that pitching that we're going to need to get? I do believe now you're going to see all this trading take place, and it may not look like the Brewers that we've seen out on the field for the last 3-4 years.
That's okay because the Brewers of the last year or two, they're not going anywhere. You do have to make some major changes. I don't think this is it.
I don't think you need major changes. I think you need more pitching.
Well, but they're not going to get it.
Did I read that
You're stuck
Valentine
with the
wanted
team
$3
we got
million
now.
a year?
Yeah.
Those guys that are in broadcasting.
And he hasn't managed for a year.
Broadcasting. That's all of us in broadcasting.
All right.
Ron
Okay.
Renicky.
Well, can we agree on one thing, though? I think we want to recognize the passing, though, of really one of the greatest managers in baseball when Sparky Anderson passed away last week. That is the kind of manager.
For once, you're right.
All right, back to the election for just a moment. It's almost like a second campaign these days, interpreting the results of the actual campaign. Naturally, there are plenty of different spins, which only proves once again that in Washington, where you stand depends on where you sit. Here's Rick Horowitz.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming and thanks for tuning in. The people have spoken. That's the great thing about this American democracy. The people speak and we get to listen. Well, let me tell you, we were listening on Tuesday night and we heard them loud and clear. And wouldn't you know it, what the people were saying is exactly what we've been saying all along. Do what you've been doing. That's what the people said. Only do more of it. So I promise you right here, right now, that that's just what we're going to do. Now, I know there'll be some who will question whether that was really the message the voters sent us on Tuesday night. Well, I'm here to tell you that that was exactly the message. Sure, some of our friends on the other side think that the voters sent a different message. Some of them think the voters' message was cooperate, compromise. But we know the real message was don't cooperate, don't compromise. Some of our friends even think they heard the voters telling them, get things done, we need more help. But we know their real message was back off, we need less government. You see, that's the beauty of our system. Once the people have spoken, it's up to us to decide what they said and what they meant and what they really meant. That's why we're sure the people were telling us to make President Obama move in our direction, because this election was a total repudiation of Obama and his policies. Now, you may have thought that the last election was a total repudiation of the previous president and his policies, and that the people were telling us to move in Obama's direction. That's silly. That's not what they were saying at all. Fight him every step of the way. That's what they were telling us back then. Block everything you can, which we were happy to do. And what a coincidence. Those are the very same things they're telling us today. So that's just what we're going to keep doing for the people's sake. God bless America. God bless the people.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you so very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. It was nice.